Hey everyone, and welcome back. Moving house. It's got to be one of the most stressful things we do, right? And a huge chunk of that stress comes from that one little voice in the back of your head asking, what about all the breakable stuff? You know, your grandmother's vase, that giant TV, the box of wine glasses. And that all boils down to the big question we're tackling today. Can removalists actually help pack your fragile items? Okay, let's get into it.
You know, the idea for this whole explainer actually came from a really simple request that just gets right to the heart of all that moving anxiety. Can you really trust removalists to pack your fragile things? It's a question so many of us have, and honestly, it deserves a proper answer.
Because here's the thing, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It really depends on what you mean by fragile and what you mean by help. So to get to the real answer, we've got to break the question down piece by piece.
So first things first, let's figure out what we're actually trying to protect here. When we hear the word fragile, our minds jump to one thing, but the reality is so much broader.
Okay, so let's start with the obvious stuff, right? We're talking about everything in your kitchen cabinets. The dishes, the glasses, plus those delicate lamps and vases. Basically, if it goes clink when you tap it and could go smash if you drop it, it's in this category. This is Fragile 101.
But fragile goes way beyond just glassware. What about all of our expensive, super sensitive electronics? Your flat-screen TV, those computer monitors, your fancy sound system. These things aren't just breakable. They're complex, they're delicate, and they are not cheap to replace. They are absolutely 100% fragile.
And then you've got your high-value pieces. I'm talking about paintings, sculptures, custom-frame photos. Any damage here isn't just an annoying inconvenience. It can be a massive financial hit.
And that brings us to, honestly, the most important category of all, the irreplaceable stuff. We're talking about family heirlooms, that antique chair passed down through generations, your kid's first pottery project. The value of these things can't be measured in money. Their fragility is all about their sentimental weight.
All right, so we've got a handle on what is fragile. But what about the other half of the question? What does help from a removalist actually look like? It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It's really a spectrum of service.
Well, it really breaks down into three main levels of service. On one end, you've got your basic transport. That means you do all the packing, they just do the heavy lifting and the driving. In the middle, there's a partial pack, which is perfect if you want to handle, say, the clothes and books, but you want to leave the tricky kitchen stuff to the pros. And then at the far end, you have the full-service pack. They bring everything, pack your entire home, and give special treatment to all those fragile items we just talked about.
So once you understand that, what's fragile and what kind of help is out there, it all leads to this one big question, the classic showdown, doing it yourself versus hiring the professionals.
When you boil it all down, it's really a classic trade-off. Packing everything yourself gives you total control, and yeah, it seems cheaper at first glance, but going with a professional packer means you're trading that control and initial cost for proven expertise and a massive, massive saving in time and energy. Let's break that down just a little bit more.
And this little matrix here, it lays it all out perfectly. Look at cost. DIY wins on the sticker price for sure. But then look at time. Professionals are just way, way faster. Now risk, this is the big one. Your risk is super high doing it yourself if you don't have the right skills or materials. With pros, the risk is low, not just because of their experience, but because of their insurance. And that brings us to peace of mind. The stress of maybe breaking something priceless versus the relief of handing it over to an expert. For a lot of people, that right there is the deciding factor.
Okay, so let's say you're thinking, yeah, professional help sounds like the way to go. How do you make sure you hire the right team? Well, the power is all in your hands. It just comes down to asking the right questions before you sign anything.
This is it. This is your pre-hire checklist. Think of it as your secret weapon. Don't just ask if they pack fragile items, ask how they do it. Ask about their training, what kind of special materials they use, like dish packs or custom crates. And definitely ask to see reviews from other people who had fragile stuff like yours. But here's the most critical part. Get the details on their insurance. What happens if they pack it and it breaks? And finally, make sure the packing cost is a separate line item on the quote, so there are absolutely no surprises.
So, let's circle back to our big question. Can removalists help pack fragile items? The answer is a huge yes, if you pick the right service and the right company. Because in the end, it all boils down to this. When your entire life, your things, your investments, your memories, is all packed away into a bunch of cardboard boxes, who are you going to trust to handle them?